Welcome to Prepared for Parenthood, the podcast for hopeful, expectant, and new parents with little ones up to age 5, as well as the professionals who work with them. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Duger, a psychotherapist, author, educator, parent coach, and married mother of 2. On this show, we'll discuss everything from the most up-to-date practicals of best supporting your young children, to thriving in relationship as a family, to more surprising topics around the psychology and development of babies and children from conception through age 5. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. I'm thrilled to have you here today. Welcome back to Prepared for Parenthood. Our guest today is Katie O'Toole, a writer, corporate sales manager, and mother. All jobs that equip her with a compassionate lens to the challenges of working motherhood. In preparation for her debut book, Mayday on the Mothership, which was released on February 9th, Katie spent 2 years investigating international data, medical journals, hospital record policies, and legislation, all while embarking on the mother becoming odyssey herself. She aims for her writing to uplift women and inspire change in their households, hospital rooms, and offices. Welcome, Katie. So glad you're here today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your new book?
Yeah, of course. I am a newer mom. I have a 1.5-year-old. She'll be 2 in August. And I am a working mom, which I think is kind of a different species sometimes. It feels like a lot of people ask me why I wrote the book. And I don't know if maybe you felt this way or if maybe some of the listeners can resonate with this, but when I got pregnant, I wanted to be this avid reader. I was trying to consume all the content, essentially do a crash course on how to be a mom. How do I do this? And all the books that I found out there were either more of a textbook feel where it felt like I was studying, or it was more of that emotional kind of book that I think my book is. But it was from the perspective of Hollywood movie stars, pop stars, influencers, people who I just had nothing in common with. They were not explaining in the book anything that I could really resonate with. It wasn't truly what I think is the real modern motherhood experience for most women out there, particularly working moms of the middle class who have to think about things like daycare or a 40-hour work schedule, no maternity leave, all of that stuff that we deal with, especially here in the US. So that's why I wrote the book. It is a good companion for women who are like me, women who are newly pregnant, already have kids, or like you, even though your kids are older. It's just a comforting type of book.
You spent 2 years researching for your book. Can you just give us some of the highlights that you stumbled on?
Yeah, I started really when I was thinking about getting pregnant. And little by little, I started to learn more and more. And I realized that women know nothing about any of this stuff. So one of the big things is that the US has the highest maternal death rates in the developed world. That floored me. I didn't know that. I think in the US, we think we have this glorious healthcare system that's the best of the best in the world. And it was becoming clear to me that that didn't apply to women, and that didn't apply to birth, pregnancy, all of that. What also shocked me was I wasn't really reading these kind of crunchy mom blogs. I was reading internationally recognized articles from the World Health Organization, National Institutes of Health. These are real medical publications. And some of it's really shocking. There's a lot of information about C-sections and something called the cascade of intervention, and why women in the US especially, but in other countries as well, are more likely to end up on the C-section table if they are in the hospital and have certain procedures done. It's a cascade that leads you there. But even on a more personal note, that wasn't as much about the hard facts and research. Some things that I started to notice was motherhood or becoming a mom, being pregnant, boom, immediately from the second you see that positive test, everything changes about your life. And that's really what I wasn't prepared for, and that I hope I can help prepare other women for. Your friendships, completely different. your relationships with your family, your relationship with your partner, your relationship with your career, and your body completely different. And you have this new relationship with this baby as well. And really just how you see yourself. I mean, every single aspect, it not only touches, but really shatters and transforms every single part of your life. And I wasn't prepared for it even because I don't know if you feel this way, Stephanie, but when I would talk to women when I was younger about being a mom, they would only tell me the lovely things about it. And those exist. And I talk about all the lovely things in my book as well. It's not just a negative book. But have you ever heard women say, oh, don't tell her that, you're going to scare her. Don't tell her that. She won't have kids if you tell her what it's really like. I actually think that's not the right thing to do. Or women will say, well, I don't want to hear about it. Then how can we educate ourselves to prepare ourselves, your workplace, your relationships, your friendships, your family, and especially your relationship with your partner at home too? Everything is about to change. Why would you not want that information so that you can prepare?
It's kind of a both and process, right? You want to hear about all the lovely, amazing, blissful times of parenthood, and those do exist, right? And you can have things like a beautiful birth, a beautiful postpartum, a beautiful pregnancy. You can have all of that. And sometimes other things happen. And it's helpful to know what you're getting into because we share a lot on this podcast around how motherhood and parenthood is such a rite of passage,
Yeah.
right? You really move from one phase of your life to a totally different one. And
Mhm.
you can't use a lot of the same tools that you've been using as you move into that new stage of life.
Yeah.
And, we've spoken a lot here about the changes in the relationship with your partner, but I'm
Mhm.
curious for you, what did you notice with your partner?
Oh, so many things. And I think the readers will hopefully find a lot of humor, but also relatability in some of the stories I talk about with Connor, my partner. And I think part of it is that I think men don't know how big of a deal it is. They don't know how physically insane it is a process. They don't know how psychologically it's a major event. They don't really realize that because women, when they talk to each other, but then also when they talk to men, they hide all this underbelly of motherhood and especially about postpartum. So I think the thing about postpartum that's different when you're talking about your at-home relationship is when I was pregnant, Connor could see physically I was waddling around. He could see me struggling and he knew how to help me. He knew how to not let me lift anything, open doors more for me or whatever. When I was postpartum, I think the baby is out and now it's the celebration. And he just had no idea because I also had no idea because women weren't honest with me about what was happening to me hormonally, psychologically, the sleep deprivation we were not prepared for. People told us, oh, yeah, you're going to be so tired, but it's all worth it. It's all so great. And we thought, okay, well, I've been tired before. I work hard. I've been exhausted before. And we're chuckling, right? Because we know that this is nothing like any other level of exhaustion. So we didn't prepare and plan for what happens when we bring this baby home to make sure that I can get rest, to make sure that I'm psychologically supported. He also didn't understand things that a lot of women experience, like postpartum rage. And I had a couple episodes where I completely flipped out. And I think he just thought I was nuts. And he was doing his best to navigate it blindly. And again, had we been prepared, had we been more informed, I think we would have been in a much better spot. So I'm excited to have a baby with him again because now we know what to do. We know how to prepare for each other. And I was listening to one of your recent episodes, and one of your guests was talking about how postpartum and parenthood really forced that mother into honest communication. She was saying, you can't hide things anymore. The way that sometimes you hide in your relationship. I don't want to deal with that right now. So I'll just pretend everything's okay. You're so depleted in postpartum, both of you, that you can't hide those things anymore. So we found a lot about that during that time. And one more thing too on that, I laugh, but it's really not funny. Men's books, if you notice this, look like they're written for children when it comes to preparing them for a baby or when their partner gets pregnant. They're picture books and they're silly. Like your wife might eat an extra cheeseburger now and then while she's pregnant. It doesn't say anything serious. And so I don't think that men are prepared for the seriousness of everything that's about to happen.
Yeah, it really is a leveling up. And I think we do a real disservice to all parents, men, women, about not letting them know what they're getting into. And there's a way to do it that you don't have to scare people. Like, here are the 5,000 things that could happen to you on any
Yeah.
specific day.
Yeah.
And they're still real, right? Like,
Yeah.
you are going to need to step up in a way that you can't even imagine, no matter how successful you are currently in
Mhm.
your life. This brings things to a very different level.
Yeah.
And if there is a partnership and there's a man in the partnership who is not getting information from other men, from peers,
Yeah.
I think it's a real disservice to them because
Mm.
they then don't know how to support their partner, right?
Exactly.
Like you've spoken to, a woman's body goes through so much transformation
Mhm.
in pregnancy, during birth, postpartum. If you are nursing your baby or bottle feeding your baby, your body is amazing in what it does. And it
Mhm.
takes a long time. It takes a long time to grow the baby.
Mhm.
It takes time to birth the baby. It takes a long time to come back after having the
Yeah.
baby. And life is still going on. It's not like things stop. So the bills still need to get paid and the
Mhm.
dog still needs to get walked and nobody has energy for it. It's a real eye-opening experience for
Yeah.
people. And I think you're right. People do not know what they're getting into. You don't know what you don't know. Even as a seasoned mom,
Mm.
I sometimes hesitate to share how hard it can be because
Right.
you don't want to set people up for being afraid, right?
Yes. And it's because we know how divine the love and the good things are about it. You want other women to experience that because we know as moms that there's nothing else like it. But I do hesitate. I try to make sure that I'm not giving them some crazy war torn story, but presenting it as, yeah, here are some things that I experienced that I wish I had prepared for. There's a scene in the book where I'm talking to some younger colleagues and we're at an event and they said, oh, my sister's teaching her baby how to do sign language. Are you going to do that with your daughter? And I said, well, I'd love to, but, and I hesitated. I only get 45 minutes with her a day. I'm a working mom, just like you would be. And they were like, 45 minutes a day? That's your daughter. And I was like, well, yes, we're working women. If you want to have children, that would be the same schedule that you have as well. And I watched all of their faces. All these girls were younger than me in their early 20s. And they're like, I never thought about that. No one's ever told me that I wouldn't be there for my child's day, that I wouldn't get to take them to school, that I wouldn't get to go to the children's museum on a Tuesday, that I wouldn't get to go swimming during the summer with them because I'm working. And so preparing other women for that, again, not in a scary way, but just to say, you might want to think about this stuff. If you and your partner want to have a baby, how is that going to change your career? Do you want to keep working? Can you financially afford to stop or to go part time? And what happens to women too often is they don't even think about that or get the opportunity to think about that until all of a sudden they're postpartum and their maternity leave is ending, if they get maternity leave at all. And they're like, well, I don't know what I want to do. I never saw any of this coming. So I hope that I can help other women through this book by showing them that this is what it probably would be like if you want to work full time, at least in the corporate world, in that normal 9 to 5 job, and have a baby in the midst of that.
And what was it like for you?
I think I'm fortunate in some ways because my company did give me 12 weeks. Of course, that wasn't enough. I dealt with very, very heavy postpartum depression and needing to leave my baby at a daycare so freshly postpartum, knowing she'd be there full time was extremely hard for me and something that I never considered. Because I talk about in the book how my generation kind of grew up in this girl boss ecosystem from kindergarten on. We were trained on how to use Microsoft Excel, eventually Microsoft Outlook and PowerPoints, and we're trained for this corporate machine. And that was really the only answer growing up. You had to get into college so that you could get a good job, so that you could make money for yourself. That is what girls were taught. Girl boss, girl power, all those things. What do you want to be when you grow up? All these things that you hear when you're young. And suddenly when I hit 30, I just for the first time questioned, oh no, I also wanted to be a mom. And where's that going to fit in here? How's that going to work? And there's no easy answer. Society right now, especially in the US, does not have that structure. The working world, I keep saying in the US, is particularly, I think, barbaric toward women and babies when it comes to pregnancy, postpartum, et cetera. When I was 10 months pregnant, still working, I would have colleagues, a couple male colleagues mention to me, why are you here? And they saw me physically suffering, physically in pain on these work meetings and everything. They're like, why aren't you on maternity leave yet? And I would have to educate them and say, that's not how it works. Women go on maternity leave, if they get it at all, when their water breaks. So I'm here until my water breaks on the carpet in the office. That's how it works. And very often you'll see in the hospital, women are still calling their boss. They're on their laptop while they're in labor just to finally sign some things off, finally try to step away, knowing that most of them have to be back a couple of weeks later. It's such a loaded question. Tough. And I hope that in the US, we can educate society and these next generations so that we can have legislation for more rights for women and babies, make it easier for women to work. Because here's the other thing. I like to work. I want to work. I like to financially contribute to my household. I like to be able to do things for my daughter financially that I wouldn't be able to do if I were a stay-at-home mom. And that's our financial reality. So I want to work. I know many women who are fierce in the workplace, who contribute to society in ways that are amazing. And I hope for a world where they can still do that and they can be a mom in a less barbaric environment.
If you feel comfortable, would you mind sharing a little bit about the postpartum depression experience for you?
It's so hard to explain because really you don't realize it's happening to you. At least that's how it was for me. I'd heard of postpartum depression, and I'd heard that women who have postpartum depression don't love their baby or they don't recognize their baby. And I didn't experience that. I did love my baby. I recognized her. I never had thoughts of harming her. And these are all very real things that some women do experience with postpartum depression. And so I thought I didn't have. And no one in the healthcare system is saying, hey, you might experience some of these thoughts. Are you experiencing X, Y, and Z? So I didn't know what to look for. And I'm so exhausted. I just gave birth. I was in labor for 3 days. I get home and I'm so sleep deprived. I went weeks without sleeping at all. I felt just so lost. And I felt like, although I loved my daughter immensely, I think I made a mistake. My life has changed. I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. And I felt like I'd lost my mind. My partner had to go back to work the day I got back home from the hospital. Boom, immediately. And I thought I would be okay. We both thought I would be fine because no one warned us that I wouldn't be. And so I was alone very early on in my postpartum experience. And I think that was a big mistake on my part that I won't do to myself again when we have another baby. So I felt very lonely and I felt like I wasn't mentally there. I felt like I could care for my baby. I did not feel like I could care for myself. I knew I couldn't. I had a C-section personally, so I couldn't move. I couldn't lift anything. I couldn't go up and down the stairs to make it to the bathroom. It was very, very hard. And I lost my mind a little bit. Why don't we talk about this? Why didn't you tell me before? So that I would have prepared a much better postpartum experience for myself and my partner. He would have too. He would have never left me there alone.
And so next time through, if you are able to have another child, what will you do differently?
A lot. I will, if I can financially, hire a doula. I think that's very beneficial. And a lot of them don't only help you in the labor and delivery. They also do check on you and do wellness visits and all of that at home after birth, which I think is huge. Postpartum time is life-threatening for a lot of women. A lot of women do pass from preventable medical issues that pop up postpartum because they're sent home immediately after this big medical event. I would want to be evaluated by a medical professional just for my own safety, my baby's safety, and just overall support. I also would try to arrange for a family member or a friend, even if I have to pay for them to miss work for a few days, to come and help me so I can get some sleep. That was huge. I think a challenge for me and for a lot of working women of my generation is in previous generations, they say, have grandma and grandpa come over. Retirement age is increasing. And very often in our generation, grandma and grandpa work full time too. And aunts and uncles are also working full time, and friends are working full time, and neighbors are working full time. So, this idea of it takes a village, the village is all working. So, I would try to get more creative on making sure that someone's there for me. My partner is now working for a different company where he has paternity leave. That's huge. I think that no man should accept in their position if they do not get paternity leave, period. That's vital, especially for women who have had C-sections. Not only are you going through this postpartum experience, a massive hormone change, psychological changes, all those things, but also, again, you can't lift anything. You can't get out of bed by yourself. You can barely walk. You can't go to the bathroom. And so to be home alone is just not acceptable. And so to have my partner now in a new position be able to say, I can actually be there without losing my job, that's huge. And so I think that's something that we also don't talk about. It doesn't just help to have the mom at home recovering alone. You need both.
For sure. We've been speaking today with Katie O'Toole, a mother, a writer, a corporate sales manager. Thank you so much for joining us today. Katie, can you share how people can find you?
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm honored to discuss this. They can find me on Instagram, or easiest place is on my website. That is kind of a hub for all resources, links to buy the book, links to my social media. It's katieotoole.com.
And again, Katie's book is Mayday on the Mothership, which I think is a great name. So pleased that you could be with us today, Katie. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Prepared for Parenthood podcast today. I hope you found this episode educational, informational, and conversational, and that you'll join me again for another episode soon. If you enjoyed listening to today's podcast, I'd very much appreciate if you would rate, review, and subscribe. If you're interested in more information related to today's podcast, or are looking for parent coaching or courses, you can find my information in the show notes or online at preparedforparenthood.com.